doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
$3 trillion of NDC investment needs $3 trillion of projects to be developed. So I'd be very interested, Gunther, to get your views on how institutional assets, we've heard one example there of how, the asset owner communities partner with the likes of the support from USTDA and others. But what's your view, about how the, asset owner community can really, lean forward and lean in on assisting the project development phase? By the way, from an investment perspective, it's actually much more, the returns are much more significant by investing early in project development than they are at financial close. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to indeed build on what we just heard before. If one imagines Africa, let's say, at large, and then considers something like a diversified portfolio across Africa, who out in the investor world would not be interested in participating in this portfolio? That portfolio doesn't exist, however. That's the topic that we have, quite clearly. But per se, this is obviously very, very attractive. Now, we do have various examples, obviously. We have just heard, let's say, our booklets and other stuff where we can really read. Of course, we have projects that we have financed. Of course, we have projects where there is investments done. Still, there's always this discussion about the gap. The gap between, let me say, the NDCs and the investors, and how is this gap somehow closed? The investors apparently waiting for the opportunity, the NDCs somehow waiting for becoming investable. If governments would be willing to view the development of an economy, the transformation of an economy, as an enormous wealth generation, let me say for the government itself, then perhaps we could come to the conclusion, it's not only NDCs. We need to start to talk about fairly detailed plans. Let me take 3 grids: energy, transport, information. Let's assume we have development plans for all 3 of those. Let's assume we are going into a position where we can say, okay, look, this is the infrastructure that is needed for the one or the other. This is the first infrastructure project that we will come up with. And now let's assume that we have this path, we have this project, and then there is an institution for the government who auctions it out. It auctions it out to the investors. I told you, we are 88 investors, we are there. We are willing to invest. And we are very willing to face the competition. We are not believing or dreaming up just because we talk with the one or the other government, we get special conditions or what. No. It's auctioned out. But what's missing that it is auctioned out? Well, the detailed plans are missing. I dare to say this. I'm not talking about a specific country. I'm not talking about every country. There are many countries who have these specific plans. Oh, but all countries? No. It's not there. We do not have these detailed plans. And then, is there an institution who is able to auction it out? Is there such an institution? For instance, like in UK, the Infrastructure Investment Bank. At earlier stages, it was called the Green Investment Bank. It's an UK example. There are other countries with similar examples. But the examples from history are not sufficient. We are talking about a fundamental transformation of economies. So we need to think about some forms of institutionalization that is fit and proper for this fundamental transformation. And we as investors do have the feeling, and I apologize for framing it that clearly, we do have the feeling governments don't take this opportunity to auction out the transformation. And that's curious. It's really curious. Because this allows, of course, for reaping quite some benefit. Just see the auctioning out of permissions for windmills, wind farms, UK, Germany, Netherlands, wherever you want to have it. That's, of course, driving quite some on top wealth that can be reaped by just auctioning it out. But the auctioning out needs to sit with a certain form of institutional layer. And I would recommend to do, yes, NDCs, the detailed plans. The 3 grids is a good start for these detailed plans, identifying projects in these detailed plans, and then have an institution that is able to really talk to the market and say, okay, look, this is the opportunity, now come in. And we would be very willing to take the challenge, absolutely. We are very willing to take the challenge. At the moment, the detailed plans are not necessarily there. This institutional layer is not necessarily there. And this is why we talk project by project. Who can we show another project so that we can learn from this other project? This is very good, absolutely, this is very, very good. But why not institutionalize it?
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.